Hey there, Parker Reed here, and welcome to PR Media, your home for everything movies and music through my eyes. And today we have a review of the classic film from 1980, Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. The Empire Strikes Back, also known as Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, is a 1980 American epic space opera film directed by Irvin Kershner and written by Lee Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan, based on a story by George Lucas. Produced by Lucasfilm, it is the second film in the Star Wars film franchise, albeit the fifth chronologically, and the sequel to Star Wars from 1977. Set 3 years after the events of the first film, the Galactic Empire, under the leadership of Darth Vader and the Emperor, pursue Luke Skywalker and the rest of the Rebel Alliance. So usually I review more recent releases, but the fact that it's the 40th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, one of my favorite Star Wars movies of all time, and the fact that it's returning to theaters for the next couple of weeks for that anniversary, I thought we might as well revisit it. It's no secret that The Empire Strikes Back is one of the most iconic films in the sci-fi genre, in movies in general, and the fact that a lot of sequels, when they go a little bit dark and they get named The Empire Strikes Back, like Harry Potter, but The Empire Strikes Back edition. Pretty much anytime that's the go-to phrase whenever a franchise goes even a slightest bit dark, but that's just how iconic this movie is. It's darker than the original, and I like that a lot. It really fleshes out the character of Darth Vader, who's one of the most iconic villains of all time, and it takes an unusual approach to more traditional storytelling during that time. In the end, not everything works out for our heroes, and they're kind of left wondering what's going to happen in the last installment of the trilogy, and that was an interesting plot development, and one that a lot of people didn't see coming at the time, and one that would have been risky even doing it now. In Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back is some of the most iconic lines of all time in movies. "I am your father" from Darth Vader. "I know" when, in response to Princess Leia, Han Solo said, "I know" when she said, "I love you." And my favorite line of the entire saga is when Luke sees Yoda lift his X-Wing out of the Dagobah swamp. He says, "I don't believe it." And Yoda says, "That is why you fail." That's fantastic. There's no better lines in Star Wars. That's just simple, it's iconic, it's memorable as hell, and there's a reason people still flock to see this movie now. It made over $1 million at the US box office last week during COVID-19, so that is an impressive feat, and it's still playing in theaters now, and I'm planning on seeing it again. Take any chance that you can to see this movie because it's one of the best films of all time. And I know this doesn't seem like a traditional review, I'm mostly just gushing about it, but it is a near perfect film. Everything is beautifully shot. There's really no CGI in it. It's all practical effects. And the fact that they can do that and make it look so good, and the fact that you can watch it in 4K now, it's blowing my mind. When you see the AT-ATs on Hoth at the very beginning, it's all practical. Sure, you can see that some of it looks like animation, stop motion. That's gonna happen. No one has the budget to actually build something that big, so it was still impressive. I was impressed by how good Yoda looked as a puppet that's now 40 years old. Darth Vader's suit looks better than it did in the original movie. All the costuming is great and aesthetically pleasing. And overall, the sets on this movie look great, and it's just super well paced as well. Splitting up the team too gives you an A story and a B story. It's easier to follow that way, and I appreciated the storytelling, and I appreciated the conflict in Luke the entire time. It made him more of an interesting character, and overall, The Empire Strikes Back is pretty much a perfect movie. But if we want to get so unbelievably nitpicky no one will want to be around you, sure, some of the practical effects don't necessarily look as great as some of the fantastic $200 million movies now, but what are you going to do? That's the technology of their time. And there's one scene that kind of makes me laugh a little bit. Usually when you have like a hologram, the projected is really big, so it shows that they're powerful and that they're menacing. But when at the beginning of the Battle of Hoth, when Darth Vader projects into the AT-AT to one of the generals, he looks like a little guy. He's just kind of sitting there with his arms like that. And it's kind of funny to see him like that, just like bite-sized Darth Vader. That's not even really an issue. It's just something that makes me laugh when I rewatch it. This movie really set the stage for what is expected of a sequel. Usually they're just rehashes and retellings of the original movie with maybe a few different plot elements. It tells its own story. It doesn't rely on knowledge from the previous movie, and it sets the stakes for the ending of the trilogy. Sure, the ending of the trilogy isn't the best movie in the world, but this movie stands on its own. And if you're a fan of Star Wars, and if you're just a fan of movies in general, I'm sure you've seen it, but if you haven't, go out and see The Empire Strikes Back as soon as humanly possible. And if you watch this whole video, this is going to come as no surprise. Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back gets my first 10 out of 10 rating. This is a perfect film. It's one of my favorites of all time, and it's one that's going to stay in the cultural zeitgeist and film history forever. So what do you think of Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back? Is it one of your favorite Star Wars movies of all time? Is it one of your favorite films of all time? Do you think it's super overrated? Let me know in the comments below. If you like what you saw here, you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram. My name is Parker Reed. You've been watching PR Media. Like, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. remember to keep supporting physical media, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
A big, new, sprawling space adventure in the Star Wars saga, The Empire Strikes Back. Coming to your galaxy next summer.